override public comment, please complete the speaker's form prior to the board resuming open session. Public comment on non-agenda items and Indian policies and procedures. The board president may rule on the appropriateness of the topic. If the topic will be more suitably addressed at a later time, the president may indicate the time and place when it should be presented. The board shall not prohibit public criticism of its policies, procedures, programs, services, acts, or omissions as outlined in Government Code 54954.3. In addition, the board may not prohibit public criticism of district employees whenever a member of the public initiates specific complaints or charges against an employee. The board president shall inform the complainant that in order to protect the employee's right to adequate notice before a hearing of such complaints and charges, and also to preserve the ability of the board to legally consider the complaints or charges in any subsequent evaluation of the employee, is the policy of the board to hear such complaints or charges in closed session unless otherwise requested by the employee pursuant to Government Code 54957.3. The board president shall also encourage the complainant to file a complaint using the appropriate district complaint procedure. Time limits, generally 3 minutes per speaker, 20 minutes per subject, will be imposed by the board president. Okay. Public comment on agenda items. Members of the public may address the board regarding items on this agenda after the presentation of the item and prior to the chair inviting a motion. Time limits, generally 3 minutes per speaker, 20 minutes per subject, will be imposed by the board president. So, are there any non-public comments on non-agenda items? I know I have Annalia's here. Is anybody else? Annalia, you may speak to your item.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm here today as a concerned parent, and I'm very upset about a series of events that took place last week at Orleans Elementary with substitutes and students. And I feel like it was not handled appropriately by school staff. And I think this board should be aware of how it was handled, and they need to know about how the staff is dealing with their trauma-informed knowledge, right? So there was, on the first day, there's 3 days of a substitute in my daughter's class. The first day, we had a substitute who was a former teacher at Witchcraft School. I believe he was dismissed. I don't know the story. But he was I'm not going to go into too much detail, but generally being very disrespectful. He brought animal hides to the classroom. The students were alarmed and felt like he was being disrespectful to their culture. He was touching children inappropriately with these hides. And the students generally felt uncomfortable. The next 2 days, there was another substitute, a woman, who proceeded to tell the girls that they were less than boys, that they were insignificant, all kinds of things that the girls were upset with. Well, they felt like they were being responsible, and they went to the school staff to tell them that they felt unsafe and they felt creeped out, and that they did not feel good about this. And I feel like that was the responsible thing to do, to go to a safe adult when you don't feel good. These girls were, they were shamed and humiliated. They were told that they needed to stay in their place, that they would not amount to anything if they do not comply with authority. And I just feel like this is absolutely inappropriate, especially given the history that our people have had in the school systems, the history of abuse. And when my child is concerned or feels unsafe, she should be able to go to an adult at the school and tell them that she feels unsafe, and that should be a place where she can go and not be, humiliated for doing that. And I'm just really upset at the way it's handled at the moment. And I do recognize that the staff is trying to smooth it over, but at the moment, it was disrespectful to our children. It did not show them love. It did not show them that they had a safe place. And I think that there's something to be said about the trauma-informed movement that we have in this district, and is it really being applied, and are our staff using it, and are they really trauma-informed, and how are substitutes being screened to know that they can be sensitive to our children? I think in the state of the world today, and I'm sorry, I'll close this up, but with the state of the world, our children need first and foremost love, and they need to feel safe. And that's my concern today.
Thank you, Annalia. I would like to suggest that you go through the school channels and follow up with this.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Was there anything else that was non?
No, I asked if anybody else had a non-agenda item. Moving on to.
So in the.
Are there public comments on agenda items?
Oh, and those would be right before the agenda.
Okay.
So we're working on our technical stuff. The first part of my report is actually not direct, it's from staff about the wellness system. So we just need to, I'm going to check in with David. We have a couple of slides to share. I'm wondering if I can ask, Craig, do you mind handing these out? We have the slideshow and we take it to the public. And then Melissa Reese, and thank you. I'll keep for the board members first, and then I made extras, and then we're going to get this set up with you guys. I'm going to check with David if he receives, he's able to share the screen, or if I need to plug in my computer. Oh, there it is. There it was.
You gotta click back down in there for some reason.
Carly, do you want one?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Click down here.
Melissa and Virgil, we're going to have you guys present first. And David's gonna go, you'll have to say, will you please advance the slide, because he's gonna. And then.
Can you pull that into a regular view, David?
Yeah, let me get this into a slideshow. Give me one sec here.
So I have three parts to my report. The first is from the wellness team. I'm going to switch my district updates and my LPAP. And we have, Virgil will introduce himself a little bit, but Virgil Moorhead from Behavior Director from Two Feathers Native American Family Services, who our district works with Two Feathers regularly, collaborates regularly. That we have a weekly wellness team meeting, which includes staff from Two Feathers, Dr. Craig Kimball, myself, Melissa Reese from KT, and then staff from Two Feathers. Oh, yeah. And we have a couple extras of the slideshow if anybody want to put it up with some of my place. So, Dave, are you able to put that into present mode?
Yes, give me one second.
Okay. And you can just let Virgil know when you're ready.
Okay.
Or start.
I can start? All right. So, hello, my name is Virgil Moorhead Jr. I'm the Executive Director at Two Feathers Native American Family Services. For those of you that may not know where that is, it's in McKinleyville. I'm also Yurok in Talawa, part of the Big Lagoon Rancheria, and trained as a clinical psychologist. So I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. And so, first off, I just want to say,
I can speak up.
Turn our mics off too. The trustees can turn their
I
mics off.
can speak up. So, you all can hear me with the mask? All right, so it's just an honor to speak in front of you all. I've with Two Feathers, been working in the district for about 4 years, 4+ years. And, as a sort of a lot that you may be aware of, experience a lot of the strengths, as well as a lot of what our community experienced, the loss, the grief, the trauma, the depression. And so, we've been really focusing on, in collaboration with the Wellness Center, on providing as much direct services as we can to the students in the district. So when I say direct services, I mean individual counseling, group counseling, one-on-one work with the students. Over the 4 years at the Wellness Center, in collaboration with a great team, superintendents, we've sort of built from just me providing services, clinical services, therapy, to now I think we have around 10 therapists that come to the Valley to provide services. That includes Jack Norton, that includes Orleans, that includes elementary, and that includes the high school, and that includes Captain John. And probably serving 70+ students in that individual intensive counseling, right? And so it's been, a real honor that I think that amount of direct services to the kids is second to none in this county, second to none. And so there's so much to work with, there's so much that you all are very familiar with, I would guess, so much more need, right? So much more need. And so, the Melissa, Craig are going to talk about like how those individual direct services in this time, how important putting systems, what we call coordinated care, multi-tiered systems of support, work together. And that's not just within the school district, right? But I would guess like that's, your all's vision of working together within the Valley. And so, just to say a little bit, because I was tasked to set the multi-tiered system of support in the systems, because that's the next step, which I totally think is totally appropriate in this time, putting those systems in place and prioritizing that. I think that the multi-tiered system of support, and this is just what I'll say lastly, is I was thinking about it as the presentation goes forward is thinking about Native Indigenous people. I'm a guest of, I'm not Hoopa of this land, but, the philosophies of what they're going to be talking about is, I'm reminded of, I was reading Dr. Kashan Lara Cooper's dissertation, and she was talking about Hoopa giftedness and what it means to be a gifted Hoopa person. And the themes that I took from that, now this is my interpretation, is interconnectedness, relationships, systems, interconnectedness, relationships, being a good ancestor. And so this, what Melissa is going to talk about is kind of like a sort of non-native, non-indigenous approach to wellness and mental health that's already in the belief systems and the systems and the traditions of our local indigenous native people for sure. And so thank you for having me. You know, it's been such an honor to work in this community, the schools, like superintendent, others, and we're increasingly working in other school districts, but like there's so much potential to not only be a local leader, but a statewide national leader within Indian country. And, you know, it didn't start with us. It started with, you know, I'm glad Erica's here and the trauma-informed movement that was well, you know, the building, all of that vision, like that is kind of, you know, a result of us being able to, and others being able to provide those direct needed services to the kids, right? And I hope that, you know, you all will continue to have us, and, you know, we'll do our best to continue to get those commissions and other folks up here. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Melissa to kind of break down the system a little bit more. Or Craig, is it Craig?
Yes,
Oh, sorry about that.
that's okay. It's a great pleasure to work with Dr. Moorhead on this program over the last 4 years. He's been very instrumental in bringing definitely a tier 3 level of support to the community, but also the expansion of his program has helped us to do a lot of really intensive work for students who need it most. So if you look at the image here, we have the pyramid again, and this is often viewed from the perspective of academics and where students fall academically. The bottom is tier 1, the green, the yellow is tier 2, and the red is tier 3. And as it goes up, we have a smaller and smaller number of students that should be accessing those services. But the other time that we often see this pyramid is when we talk about behavior. We're not going to talk about either academics or behavior tonight, although that's definitely impacted by the social emotional, the mental health. And so the program that Virgil was just referring to has been taking something which was a small start, and the trauma-informed movement and the many people who've been a part of that, and then expanding it incrementally to be completely tier 3 down into tier 2, and the goal is to eventually have a multi-tier level of support. Some of the numbers I just want you to take a look at is, if you look in the red, you can see that usually we have less than 10% that fall into that category. And usually in the yellow, we have between 10 and 25. And then the other percentage is down below. Beside that, though, you can see the numbers, the percentages that exist here in Climate Trinity, and they're pretty much double. So one of the really important things is going to be making sure that we're providing more and more support at an earlier point so that we can reduce those numbers in the red and yellow areas. Next slide, please. Thank you, David. So as we look at what social emotional intervention looks like across this, we're going to see that there are different levels of support. And while we have, individual counseling and crisis intervention at the top, we don't always want to be catching the student when they get to that point. We really ideally would like to start to have more and more preventions in place that will really help our students to be better able to address early on or avoid completely some of the challenges that they currently encounter. You can see a number in the tier 2 category. There are programs like support groups and resources, referrals, peer mentoring, youth development and leadership groups. And some of those terms are probably unfamiliar to you because we don't have those programs really solidly built here in the district. And then as we go down to tier 1, you can see that there are opportunities for us to expand to a very grassroots sort of level where we have the wellness center is is much more open to students who simply come seeking answers to questions, but where we have a lot more outreach and partnership with the community to address needs and help students to develop resiliency skills. All right, next slide, please. So currently, if we look at the Wellness Center staffing, we have these people in place. And it has taken some time for us to get to the point where we have 2 feathers and 11 clinicians. We currently have a vacancy as a nurse, but we also have social workers. We have a bridges position that was grant funded through the county. We now have a wellness system coordinator. And as these pieces start to come together, we're going to find that the more systematized, the more structure the system has, the sooner students will be able to access it and access it at the level that they need. So if we then, you'll see 2 of those have arrows pointing out, and the rest are just straight bars connecting. Those arrows are because those people are not necessarily at the wellness site, but they communicate regularly with the wellness center. Next slide, please. So if we look at what our goal is to expand into these other areas of development. So we're constantly looking toward the future and how we can bring those in, but there are some things that we need to do. And so we need to be able to expand the access to the wellness center. It needs to become a more comfortable and familiar place to all the students. We need to simply improve the coordination of this early identification or students who walk in. And while we're making great steps this year towards accomplishing those, this is all leading us to what we'll talk about in just a moment, which is the future. We also have in the past had different levels of developing classroom education. It is not universal across the entire district. It looks different at different sites. That's one of the other areas that we need to, that we're currently working on. We're also trying to create a wellness youth advisory council. And that would be very, very beneficial as we start to have youth take more and more of a role in identifying exactly what they need or looking for or are facing. So as we do that, we're going to be constantly expanding the supports, but we're going to be expanding those supports because we have increased our the programs, the access, the support, and the partnerships, which is the last one. So I'm now going to turn the time over to Melissa to talk about the future.
Hello, I'm happy to be here to help share with you our ideas about ways to expand Tier 1 and Tier 2 social emotional support for our students. As Craig and Virgil had pointed out, there's a lot that we've been thinking about in order to do that. And in order to accomplish our vision, our long-term goal for the Wellness Center, it did start out with needing a coordinator to help begin coordinating services at the Wellness Center, but also looking deeper into the school district, being able to formalize a lot of community partnerships and to be able to expand on those. As Craig pointed out, you can kind of see where our ideas are beginning to take shape here. But if we turn to the next slide, we'll be able to see what staffing is needed in order to be able to expand on Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports. What you'll notice about this is several different colors. The positions or the titles in gray and blue are those that are existing positions within the district. And these are all folks that support the Wellness Center currently. Myself as the Wellness System Coordinator, 2 feathers working directly in collaboration, the clinicians, the AOD counselor, the school social workers that we currently have right now within the district. We envision expanding out 2 more school social workers in order to best serve all of these school sites within the district. That's a hope that will get your support in moving forward with that. We also work closely with all of the district's support staff, outreach workers, behavior support specialists, the aides, the life skills coordinator. You know, these are very important relationships that we have grown over time, and we hope to continue to refine those partnerships and be able to best serve all of our students throughout the district. What we're here to do tonight is to plant some seeds about the possibility of developing a wellness outreach specialist. We're feeling as though when we look at the long-term goals and the vision of the Wellness Center, that will help us expand our Tier 1 and Tier 2 social emotional supports. It will allow us to integrate into the classrooms consistently. It will allow us to have additional support groups, small group interactions that we currently are unable to expand on right now without that position. But to give you an idea of where we see ourselves in the future, you'll notice several blue rectangles. There was mention of the Wellness Youth Development Advisory Council. There's a number of activities that we've talked about, including groups where we feel input of the students at the high school, at the middle school, those within our district that will have valuable insight into not only our services, but how the Wellness Center looks, and will be able to allow us to think differently about the way that we're providing services, or at least give us more ideas to creatively serve the people we're intended to. So we hope to have a youth development advisory council in the future. We also would like to expand on our ability to provide wellness interns. These are graduate and postgraduate students, people working on either their licensure, or maybe they're currently working on a master's degree. Those folks could work at the Wellness Center or out at sites. We have a couple of our community partners that are very anxious to see if that's a possibility. And lastly, we want to expand on our community partnerships. I have about 4 or 5 different tribal and county programs that have very excited to work with us. They want to see how they can provide direct services, not only at the Wellness Center, but see students throughout the district. And many of them are suggesting that we formalize those partnerships through MOUs. So as we move forward, I hope you'll give some consideration to this staffing model, some of the things that we've shared tonight, and certainly give special attention to that wellness outreach specialist position in order to expand on those Tier 1, Tier 2 social emotional services as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Point out that just attached, kind of for the after the meeting, attached as an information item is a draft of a wellness outreach specialist, not for the board to discuss or take action on tonight, but just so that you have, you and public have some time to read through it and then consider questions or things you'd like us to look into. Yeah, I just wanted to know if anybody had questions about this as part, this is a team that I meet with regularly. So this is a good crowd. If you had any questions, I can either answer at this time, or Melissa Prager Virgil could answer, or I could find out. Or you can ask me later if nothing comes to mind. But I do want to emphasize that, I think one of the things that was a connection right away for us was the systematizing of the services to really make sure that, we are doing our best. We know that lots of students and lots of kids get served. Absolutely. I mean, it's really fantastic. And just making sure that we're connecting it so that every student can get what they need, and that our staff are really prepared to make the appropriate decisions, because it's kind of, for folks who are our staff, all of us who work with kids, when you're making decisions about somebody's well-being, we want to know what the next step is, and we want to know who to go to. And it not just have to be, I hope, and I remember making those phone calls to county mental health as a superintendent, saying, I hope I'm calling the right person. So we're really looking forward to having, something that just enhancing what we're already doing, because there's all the pieces are all there. Anybody questions or?
I just want to say thank you to both Joel, Craig, and Melissa.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you also. I know we were really looking for services that didn't exist in our community a few years ago. And so I'm really happy to see this established and want to watch it grow and be successful for all of our students. Thank you.
Oh, I'm gonna give my general district updates, and then I wanted to, and as part of my update, I'll talk about it. I'll have.
I have some other comments for this question, or sorry, for this agenda item as well. But for the appropriate time.
Which item?
For 6A, like my comment card that was just submitted.
Okay, yes, you do have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thanks. Do I need to go? I don't know.
You have going on 6B as well, right?
I did, but I am more focused on 6A.
Okay, so you.
And I can watch 6B on YouTube.
Okay.
Oh, I can talk. Thank you though. Erica Tracy, Education Director for the Bhutan Valley Tribe. I'm very happy to see such a strong presence for the Wellness Center and a very thorough, I think, presentation that I don't know how familiar the board has been with the center itself and the services that are being provided. And even in the time that I was on leave, I'm seeing significant changes. And that is great that there is expansion. I'm super excited to hear about the Youth Advisory Council. That is exciting. What I would like to speak about though today, and at this moment with this presentation in particular, is that in the presentation, I'm hearing things like our vision for the Wellness Center and our vision for the services that the Wellness Center will provide. And I am here to also remind you, and I do appreciate the acknowledgement, Dr. Moorhead, of the trauma-informed movement and what that meant and what that looks like, because I think that there is progress happening and expansion happening, and that's great. But at the same time, you are setting yourselves up to start to silo, and I'm seeing that already. So trying to find ways to, I guess, make those partnerships happen as soon as possible and make them meaningful, as well as, so I'm curious, like it sounds like there are different agencies and different entities that the current Wellness Center staff are working with, but I don't know who that is. I also don't know who, when we're talking about the vision of the Wellness Center, who is at the table? Is it this current staff? Is it the school board? Is it the community? And at what point do all of those voices come together to do that? We have not had a trauma-informed movement in quite some time. It's still the first Monday of the month. I did get on Zoom in hopes of people showing up, but I also did not get a chance to really outreach and do that again. So I do hope that we become active. Some people here today have been very active and a part and so appreciative of that. But that was a real opportunity where it was a multi-systems, cross-network, and cross systems of collaboration that needs to be revamped and not be left out of this growing movement of the Wellness Center. So I do hope that that is considered going forward. I also did not get to get here. My timing was a little off for public comment, but it's still tied to the Wellness Center that I did talk to the council before coming here and presenting that today. So I'm also aware that part of the function of the Wellness Center has been handling COVID testing and possibly contact tracing And what we are finding is that there are still gaps. And I know I've expressed those before, but lately there have been very concrete, tangible examples, including people coming back from COVID release to the school before they are released. So if I have staff going to the from the after school program or any other of our tribal programs coming to pick children up, there was a specific situation when a child that was picked up from Hoopa Elementary School going to our program that was not released to return and was on COVID quarantine. Therefore, exposed children in the school and exposed children in our programs. So that tells me that there are still gaps in who's actually contact tracing, who's actually keeping track of those release dates and the timeframes and when children should return or not return. Similarly, we did request additional numbers from our COVID team with the tribe, and that was provided, and I appreciated that, Willie. But as we were able to look at that sheet and see not only what tests are being conducted, but how many positives were reported, there are discrepancies in the data. And I'm sure it was under a tight timeline. I'm not sure who compiled those numbers, but even just looking back from like what was submitted from the district office to public health officers in terms of numbers, and then what was presented to the tribal council on a table, there are discrepancies. So I do hope that we can find ways to continue to work together and work in consistent and collaborative communication, not just on COVID, obviously, but also some of the really great work that is happening in the Wellness Center, but finding ways to not continue to build the walls that already exist between school district systems and communities and tribal nations, like it applies here. And our district. Thank you for letting me go over a little bit. I appreciate it.
All right. So I think I'd be able to read and breathe with a mask and not fog out my glasses at this point, but still working on that. So later on, I know that Trustee Debbie Myers will report in her trustee report at the end of the meeting about attending the Small School District Association meeting conference. It was the first professional conference that I have attended in person in 2 years, and it was the last conference that I attended prior to the pandemic, well, the beginning of the pandemic. So that is an opportunity for trustees to dive deeper into governance, for superintendents to dive deeper into school leadership. And it really is consistent with what we've been trying to do in having collaboration across the different domains of running the school district, working in the school district, being a student in the school district, and coordinating services. In terms of finance, we have our second interim budget is on the agenda tonight with a recommendation of a positive certification that's going to come up in a little bit. We are currently really well funded with one-time monies from all of the COVID relief. So the state budget is looking robust. California is actually quite wealthy because billionaires have become multi-billionaires, and that is where the majority of our school funding comes from. It's a really interesting look at how people that are not but billionaires are really feeling it in terms of the inflation and things. But because our tax base comes from the people that are extremely wealthy, we have a lot of money in our state reserves. But the state budget for education, we're getting money, but there's a lot of restricted money. There are a lot of programs that the governor has a political agenda, good intentions, but it is, you are getting this money for this purpose, which is different than the trend, which was more, here's your block of money, school districts, find out what your people need, find out what your students need, and go and do those things. So we're looking forward to hearing the May revised budget and seeing how many categories of funding there are. But that was something that was also a big talking point at the conference that Debbie and I went to. And it really, speaks to our governance and leadership in terms of understanding ongoing monies, one-time monies, restricted money, and unrestricted money, which is our unrestricted ongoing is our favorite pot of money because that's where we get to make our local decisions. In terms of health and safety, the majority of what I'm going to talk about is COVID related. But prior to that, I want to give you, let you know that tomorrow at our leadership meeting, I'm going to bring to the principals and the managers, reinstating our policies about having visitors on campus. And, it's spring, we have kids outdoors a lot. So we want to make sure that we are having our campuses are secure. The primary function of the school facilities is to serve our students. We love when community members and community events can happen at the school, but if there are competing resources, we need to look at what our students need. So I'm going to ask for staff to identify school hours for student use so that there's no conflict and kids have, free run of our outdoor facilities. So I'll bring that back to you, but we do have school board policy about visitors on campuses, particularly during student activity hours. Of course, our most prevalent topic, COVID. So at the district safety team meeting, we reviewed the 3 factors that the California Department of Public Health is saying, here's what school districts should consider. Look at the pandemic patterns in your community. Look at your ability to prevent and treat COVID-19, and then look at your population. And we said, by and large, things are more favorable. The pandemic numbers are lowering, but it's not gone away. We have a really very robust ability for prevention because we have an 80% vaccination rate amongst our staff. We have 1 million masks, lots of hand sanitizer. We are used to these protocols, which are protective. And that is what, and it's been working. It has not been perfect. There's no system. There's nobody that would say that anything is risk-free. But we looked at this new removal of the mask mandate. I mean, that's kind of a hot topic. Like the masks can come off, and our safety team said not quite yet for our school district. We have found that we are generally a couple of weeks behind the trend with the rest of the county. The county is now a medium level of risk instead of high. It was just high a week ago. But we just feel like we have seen changes and lifting restrictions too soon, and then we go backwards. So we are going to be in a watch and wait. We're really glad that the numbers are down, but we want to be really sure that all the work we've done for 2 years, that we don't put anybody's health in jeopardy. And it's going to be frustrating because some people will be like, this is the only place that I have to wear a mask in school. But that way kids can continue to come to school. We said we are not going to require masks outdoors. We're going to keep it to the indoor area. We're going to continue with our testing. So we have a lot of other safety measures, but in other school districts, there are, the kids are going to start school on Monday without wearing masks indoors. But for our district, we've sent out notification to continue masking. So that's our COVID update. Things are looking better, but we don't want to tire out at the last minute. My next topic to update is just labor relations. KT has had 3 negotiation sessions with the California Teachers Association, our local KTTA. We are working towards coming to an agreement on language related to timelines for grievances, transfers, working conditions, and professional development. We've exchanged proposals relating to compensation. We would like to be able to move forward with our proposal of a robust starting teacher salary. And our next meeting is scheduled for March 18th. And then we begin 2 consecutive days of negotiations on Monday, March 14th with CSEA. So we're going to do 2 days back to back. So that we're going to do that in person for the first time. So we hope to be more productive. And now our kids. We are, our current enrollment is 964 students. I think the last time I reported to you, it was 986. So that is not, that's a pretty big number for our, a district our size. And so I have to do follow up with our principals about which schools. We know some patterns of people moving out of the area, or sending school kids on inter-districts. Of those 964 students, 53 are enrolled in independent study. The majority of those are at the high school. Our elementary school numbers for independent study are way down. in terms of wellness for students and staff, we continue to offer COVID testing every day, and we will continue through the end of the year. So we already heard the team's presentation. At the high school level for curriculum, the staff are exploring this, I think it's physical science. I wrote physical and now I'm thinking maybe it's chemistry, looking at 2 adoptions, one for one of the physical sciences and social studies. In professional development, our special education teachers have participated in a Saturday workshop with the Humboldt SELPA program manager. We had 17 staff that participated in restorative practices training in February. And my shout outs, which are thank you and congratulations to Hoopa Valley High School for their, they had their WASP walkthrough and review. Craig's whole physical body changed once they gave their presentation. They had wonderful things to say about our students, about the school climate at Hoopa High, and about the teachers and the welcoming environment. So they kind of had, here are the highlights, here's where you're shining. Then they have recommendations and they're completely willing to help. These are high school teachers and staff. They definitely had some recommendations about next steps for professional learning communities, addressing instructional practices such as they specified universal design for learning. They would like to, for the high school, to look at calibrating the grading process and addressing absenteeism, which is, ubiquitous across the United States right now. Craig, do you want to say anything about that? Because that kind of is a specialized niche for the high school.
No, it was my first time experiencing on that end. So the previous experience with WASC was as a teacher. So very nervous for about 2 years now. And then we went through the process. It was a very good process. I appreciate them coming in, putting outside eyes on our school and looking at it from a totally different perspective. No involvement prior. So, and we tried our best to give them what we had. We didn't want to try to, put hypotheticals in there or anything that, isn't current. So they took a real look at the high school of who we are, what we represent, what we're teaching our kids. And their response was, accurate and to the point. So we really appreciated that. It was a very good process. All of our staff bought into it, all of our staff. And that was one of the big things is we do a lot of things very well. Now let's focus on doing things extremely well. So they gave us a focus. And now that we've all seen that, we're going to talk about it at our next staff meeting, work with the district and really take some of these recommendations and implement them into our plans going forward. Because it was some really good information they shared with us. And it was a really good experience. I didn't know what to expect. I thought they would come in with the microscope and so I was but once they came in, that was a really solid team, highly qualified team. And they did a really good work and they worked with us. So it was a good experience. I actually enjoyed it. So
I got that same feeling. I only went to the final presentation because I was in Sacramento and I completely felt like that the team was working with your staff. And they were very sincere and they were so happy to be here. I'm so glad we waited and didn't do an online review and that they got to come here. Because I think going to Hoopa High School is different than imagining Hoopa High School.
that's what they said.
Thank you for sticking with that commitment.
And I tried to recruit a couple of teachers, but they wouldn't leave. The mall areas, the malls was their biggest thing. They were drawing malls down south. But I said, well, we're always here.
So the other thing that Craig has provided is some updates on this A to G completion improvement grant, which was presented to the board just as like, here's the template. It's another plan that we have to write. I think we're up to 7. So he worked with staff to come up with some recommendations about this. Is it $150,000 that comes to us to increase students' access for the A to G course pathways. So it particularly focuses on students that the state names as unduplicated, foster youth, socioeconomically disadvantaged, and English learners. But really, it's something that is for all students, and so it gives the high school resources to provide more access to those courses so that we see more students completing the A to G. So they have a first draft that I can, that I'll share just with some ideas. And then we need to bring the plan. We have to write the plan by April 1st. It's very short, just.
It doesn't need to be board approved, but we do have to have a plan in place by April 1st. But the approval can come later, but just have something in place. So here's kind of the first look.
And it's over two years, right? Through 2020.
2025, yeah. I think that's the
Oh,
next, yeah.
We'll look at the timeline. It's not a ton of money, but it's enough. It's some good seed money,
Yeah.
you know, to get something going. Statistics here. So the last part that I would like to just discuss is the LCAP. It's I used to say March is when LCAP season started, but it's always LCAP season. We've really had a good commitment to looking at that document. I mean, the paper copy that I have is completely beat up and has sticky notes all over it because I'm adding to it instead of it just being, oh, it's time to approve the LCAP. We're looking at that as a guide and a plan, short of strategic planning, as you had mentioned earlier. You know, it's where we put our head together for a certain pot of money. It's not for all of our expenditures. It's definitely not all of our services. So prior to starting the surveys that we, you know, ask of families and staff and students, I worked with David Ellie. We said, okay, we delayed the delivery of the surveys because we wanted to make sure that we figured out we're going to send the surveys out, and this is how we're going to get them back. Because we found out last year we sent a lot of surveys out. We didn't learn as much as we thought because people didn't have a really clear idea of what do I do with this at this point. So we published in the paper, we sent it out to staff. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to send it out. It will be sent out electronically and a paper version. We want it by the end of the week. And so now I'm here to just give you a little bit of information about the first survey, which was about school climate. And it's it emulates some of the questions that we might find in, you know, Healthy Kids survey. But the first question we asked was about, do schools actively seek the input of parents and families before making important decisions? There was a 50-50 split on agreeing and disagreeing. So I would say that that's something we clearly need to improve and work on. Overall, 76% of respondents feel that they are welcome to participate at their child's school. And 86% agree that our schools have adults that really care about our children. We are definitely interested in learning ways that we can get information to families and that we can receive information from families. So we asked about ways that we could get more input before important decisions are made. People recommended surveys, the text, call, and email through Parent Square. Community meetings came up as a theme in a number of different questions. I feel like people are ready to come back to gatherings that came up. We saw that in multiple questions. And that also said, if it can be easier for families, it's easier for people to come. So, you know, making efforts to provide food because people maybe have been at work all day, looking at how to provide childcare. So these are just some, you know, recommendations. Better communication and advertising, and we're going to press into that a little more, how people find things out. Ways that schools could be more welcoming was overall people said that schools are welcoming, but they would encourage communication from staff and from teachers to families about their students, about their children on a regular basis. Again, events, game night, movie night, and the feeling that families want to be part of the school community, but we got the sense in looking through the responses, they're waiting for us to invite them, that they're not just going to show up. So I feel like that's really good for us to know that we have to say, yes, please come. And what the ways the schools could be made safer, increasing supervision and have the supervision of students be more active. Consider increasing staffing to, you know, walk on the grounds. Somebody said dads on duty, parent volunteers, you know, because we know our staffing limitations. And some increases to overall security and really having consistent discipline. There was also comments about mental health services are good, but they always want them to be improved or offered more. And there was also about having inclusive environments, highlighting that we should highlight the positive things that are happening. And I've heard specific trustees said we need to talk about the things that we're doing that are good. And we've been really trying to promote that with our regular updates in the Two Rivers Tribune and social media and on our website. We did ask about, for students that receive special education services. This, I really was pleased to hear that 86% of our families that responded, that students that receive special ed services agree that their children do have the same opportunities as other students. And they're happy with the amount of time that their child is included in regular education program. And then finally, I have a long list of things. We asked the question, what kinds of clubs and activities would you like to see schools offer? And we heard lots of sports. I think that was number one, visual and performing arts, and lots of specifics, cultural activities. There are specifics there. Cooking came up a lot on its own. Life skills, outdoor, and a list of others. So we have a lot of good ideas from this initial survey. Our next survey will go out on next Monday. We thought we would do it every other week. Then President's holidays happened and we went, oh, what were we thinking? So we're off. It was our beta test to see if we could really get the data. I think altogether, we didn't get 1,000 respondents. We got, I think, 112, which could really be 500 students. So it's a good start. So that's my LCAP update and my whole suit update. Thank you.
Thank you. On to item 7, Rosenberg's Rules of Order, the basic format for an agenda item discussion. And this is a brief on Rosenberg's Rules of Order and what we're going to be doing. The basic format for an agenda item. Chair announces the agenda item number and subject. Chair invites an appropriate person, chair, trustee, staff, or committee members to present information and recommendation. Chair asks if trustees have clarifying questions. Chair invites public comment and announces when public comment has concluded. Chair invites a motion. Chair invites a second. The second is not an absolute requirement. It is left to the discretion of the chair. Chair clarifies the motion by either asking the maker of the motion to repeat it, chair repeating the motion, and chair asking the secretary or clerk to repeat the motion. Chair invites discussion. If there's a substantial discussion, repeat the motion prior to the vote. Chair takes a vote by asking for ayes and nays, and chair announces result of the vote and action that the board has taken. Announce number of votes by which the motion passes and the dissenting vote.
So my comment on this is, I think that what Martha and I had discussions about chairing the meeting, and the muscle memory of the board seemed to be Robert's Rules of Orders, because that was what has historically been used. And when the board went through the board protocols and agreed to Rosenberg's, it was in name only for a while. And then we started, provided the information. It's hard to switch procedures, but this is what the board had agreed to, but we didn't have the background. So Martha had talked about practicing. And so she and I agreed that this would be good for Carrie to read, thinking at the time Carrie was going to be the clerk, not serving as the chair. So I have extra copies if anybody wants that, but thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to item 8, consent agenda. On the consent agenda, if anybody or have something to say about the consent agenda, I know that we approved, we voted to move item 8F to an action item. And we voted to completely remove item 8I, correct?
I move we adopt 8A, B, C, D, E, G, H, J, and K. That we approve those.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Motion carries. 6-0.
To action items.
Carrie. So for action items, we didn't specify, but shall we start with 8F?
You can do that. Okay, item 8F. You're the one who requested us to move it to an action item.
Yes.
Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, the minutes from January 11th, page 1, under number 1, meeting called to order. It says the minute was called to order. We just need to change that. And then over on page 6, under E, reaffirmation of the Indian policies and procedures. A motion was made to reaffirm the Indian policies and procedures school year 2021, and we need to put 21-22, not 2022. So those were the two corrections.
Motions? I move we adopt the minutes with the corrections mentioned.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving to action item 9A. Certification of second interim budget report. Would you like to speak on that?
Well, it seems like we just finished that first interim and right directly into second interim. And it was quite a task once again. However, we are going to end, we're looking at our out years. We're going to have a positive budget in place. And this budget included an update from the governor's budget. And this update included a 5.7 planning COLA, but it also included an increase of SNRs in the out years. So we'll see some flexing around, as I will say, between the two out years. Take into consideration right now what our current ADA is and our projected enrollment, because it's down, and our ADA is really low. We lost about $1.2 million. I don't want to say lost. It's just, it's unfortunate that our revenue dropped because of our projected ADA. And so I'm hoping to come up with some solutions to work on our attendance and get our kids back in school and get our enrollment back up. I'm crossing my fingers because we did project a little bit higher in the next 2 years. But what we're looking at right now is pretty drastic for the time being. Again, our projections in the 2 out years, I just followed what our trend has normally been in the years past. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get right back on track again. It's just we've had some really bad years in the last couple of years, and we were fortunate to utilize our ADA in the last couple, the same ADA before we closed, but now we're looking at reality and ouch, it really hit us. with that, that's basically it. We are still doing a lot of deficit spending, and we're working on a plan, as you can see on tonight's meeting in regards to some of our classified vacant positions. We're just trying to, we have some plans in place. It's gonna help us readjust where we're at and moving forward. But with that being said, we're still on course for completing our CTE building. We have a bit of a cash flow issue, which we'll be working on because of our Fund 35 for the CTE building, but I'm in good spirits about that one. That one's really, I'm not worried about it. So we're still moving forward. I don't have anything else unless someone else has questions. There's something I'm more.
Any questions?
Clarify something, just as a reminder that when we're talking about ADA, it is the combination of enrollment, which as I reported is down, and attendance. And you know, districts across the state, we're kind of trying to have a legislative approach to this, a solution, because every single district in California is going to feel a decline in the number of students that are attending school, because California students are leaving or families are smaller. And we're trying to provide more services, but the state's funding formula is based on who shows up. And so I'm hoping that there'll be some relief there, because there's just there's outcry everywhere in terms of couldn't bring students to school, and now we're in this situation. But I do want to just, we know that absenteeism has been a chronic issue. This is not a new pandemic issue for our district. So there are a couple of different areas that we're working on in collaboration with the Hoopa Valley Tribe to do interventions as part of this whole strategy. But I just wanted to, I know that there's the ADA, and I don't know that everybody always is fully aware of what that is, or understands that combination, that there's two driving factors. The other thing that I think this was called out again, just speaking to the, kind of those one-time bumps of the COVID-related funds, and it's good. It gives us ability to do some things now, but our long-term planning is what we need to think about for years. That's why we are required to do the 3-year projection. And then I wanted to ask in terms of, I was unsure about, is there something like we may be able to use the prior year, or is it going to be this current year for the ADA?
No, that was
It'll be
this year.
actuals.
For this year, that's what we had to look at our out years. So that they stopped us. They stopped.
Well, thank you.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'd just like to thank Carmi for all your hard work. I know how much time that takes. But I do see that we do have a positive funding for 3 years out. However, we still have deficit spending, as Carmi said. For the 21-22 school year, it's $103,914. For the next year, 22-23, our deficit spending will be $1,368,266. For the third year out, $1,430,854. So while the state says they send COLA to our district, you can't look at percentages. You have to look at the dollar amount, because a 1% on our unrestricted is a certain number of dollars. But when we look at percentages for raises, et cetera, the percentages don't go across, the numbers don't match. So you have to look at specific dollars of what comes in. And then not only do we get a projected COLA, which we don't know what it will be until the budget is actually passed by July 1, the STRS and the PERS contributions are skyrocketing. Health insurance is skyrocketing. Fuel is skyrocketing. So I don't even think that the COLA will fill those positions, those expenses. But we know we need to move forward. Those numbers are not in stone. School districts are the only ones that have to project what their expenses are going to be for next year before you even know what your income is. It's just all backwards. So I hope that the state will start funding on enrollment and not ADA, and at least you can know what dollars you're dealing with at the beginning of the year and not see where you're at. Be surprised at the end of the year. But with those comments, I do move that we certify our second interim as positive.
Well, that is your motion.
Yes.
I'd like to invite a second. Okay. Also, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, moving on to item 9B, resolution number 2022-20, intention to reduce or discontinue certificated employees, particular kind of services. And I know I have some public comment here. One from Julia.
I'm commenting on number 6.
Pardon me?
I'm commenting on.
It's on C instead of B, okay,
Yeah.
and then I think that. Okay, I don't think that there's anybody that has any comments on this one, B. So, resolution to reduce or discontinue certificated employees, particular kind of services. Who would like to speak to this?
I can address this. So there's 4 positions that are listed. They are all unfilled positions. 2 of them have carried over. We had no intention of filling them because our staffing is responsive to classes and we didn't have the students to fill 2 of the positions. And the other 2 were grant funded. So it's just about us, getting our position control more accurate. So this is not something that impacts any specific people. It's just cleaning up what we are actually staffing. But they're all vacant positions.
Does the board have any questions? Okay. Yeah, Tom?
I move we adopt resolution 2022-20.
A second?
Second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All right. I'd like to. For sure. All in favor?
Yeah.
Unanimous. Yes. Action item 9C.
Thank you. I'm speaking here. I'm just gonna project from here. I just want to speak in support of our 7th and 8th grade teacher at Orleans Elementary. The class there, my son is in that class, and since 3rd grade, they have not had a consistent teacher. And so in the last year or so that he's been there, that I've seen great improvement in my son's performance. I feel like the teacher has built trust with the kids, like that they feel secure and that they have consistency. And I think that as time moves on, that they can build their confidence in the classroom, continue to build that relationship with that teacher. I see this teacher very caring and loving to the students, very invested in their well-being, not just their academic performance, but especially their emotional and mental health well-being. And I think that right now that is very important. And so I really appreciate that. And I hope that, I think in this time of teacher shortages, that we can't afford to just throw teachers to the wayside because maybe there's personality conflicts or whatever. I think that adults need to be adults and work around that and not throw teachers to the side, you know, at the expense of our children's well-being. And I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Please have any questions or comments? Okay, I would like to invite a motion.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2022-21 on relation to this.
I'll second that
Oh,
motion.
he hasn't.
Does he have a card? Your card.
I had Annalia speak to this and Misty was speaking to D. Oh, John Rossi was speaking to C. I'm sorry, John.
Oh, just to remove the motion.
Yes.
Yeah, and we'll come back and make a motion.
I withdraw that.
Okay, thanks.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Hope you are well. Thank you so much. First, I'm here to speak for myself last. I'm here because Emily is here. I'm here because my students deserve for me to be here and speak for them. Yeah, I was very fortunate to come into the community through cousins of Annalia's family. They took me in, lived with them, and they have family at the school, and they consider me an uncle to their kids. And I have a new little niece, and I love this community. I built connection in the community. When I arrived, there was crisis, and I met that call to take a class that was struggling and to bring some consistency. They didn't love themselves. They hated themselves, and that winter break, I went and sat down with many educators in my family and in my network. And I came back with a goal to build community. And this year, to see it flourish, to see it fruit, to see them walk hand in hand today, as I spoke to the person from Success for All, our reading program, and we spoke about that program and how well my class was doing in this brand new curriculum that I've had to pick up and learn and to implement being a new teacher. And she said, "Oh, that's really making my day." And I turned and my students are holding hands and walking off because they had successfully completed our lesson for the day. And I told them they could because I thought the conversation with her would be very important for all of us. And so I I want to be there for them next year. I want this. I want to be the teacher. So, really, it's everybody in my network. I attend 2 Redwood Writing Project session, or 2 different Redwood Writing Project classes every month. Credential program. I should get it in. I should get a preliminary in August. And the people in that program and in those meetings, the multi-grade support network and the new teacher literacy, I have their support. I have the support of my advisor. Most importantly, the families that I serve and my students. So I prefer to keep my mind in my classroom and be there for them. And these moments make it very challenging. Just the social aspect of it, the putting yourself out there and taking a risk. And but I think I try and teach them, right? I try and be that example. And so yeah, I'm glad I came here to speak for them no matter what happens. I think it might be a little premature, right? March 15th is just the notice of non-reelection. So I'm aware of that. But I'm new to this, and I had to come here and say that I want this.
Thank you.
Sorry, one last thing. I do want to make it clear that I deeply respect Gary. We've had to work through a tremendously difficult time together. And I think we were both in an unfair position for her to be both my mentor for my credential program and my principal. And normally a new teacher would air their grievances or discuss things with their mentor, not their principal. And in the ed code, it says that there should be a competitive process to assign a mentor to a new teacher. And that was my responsibility to seek a mentor. We had people who weren't available, and it just made sense at the time for Karen and I to continue in that way. So yeah, I understand Karen's decision, and I respect her.
I appreciate that last comment. Thank you. Discussion? No discussion.
I'd like to say something. I know what it's like to be a new teacher, because at one point I was. It took me probably 4 years before I started to feel like I kind of understand what was going on and kind of up to speed, comfortable. And so I can understand how the system is very constrained in that way. It almost forces the people to make really quick decisions as to whether they're going to work with somebody. So I understand that.
Any more discussion? Okay. Motion?
I withdraw my motion now because I'm not sure what this is all about. I'd like to learn more about it and not, I don't want to agree to this and resolution 2022-21 at this time, because I don't know enough about it, what's going on. So. So my understanding that if we go ahead and pass the resolution, that it can be individual decisions can be made to bring a teacher back. It's not final. So there is wiggle room. And it does affect other people other than yourself.
Yes. I think you know, after listening to comments both from the teacher himself and family person, I think that we should reconsider this, and we have to vote for this right now, I think, because there's a time limit. But we can reconsider it after that, right?
Administration can. It doesn't have to come back to the board.
Yeah, I know how hard it is being a teacher coming into, you know, a new community and everything. It took probably 7 years for me to feel like family here. And I worked in this school district as a teacher for 30 years. But once you're here and you invest yourself and you care for these children and their families, you are family. So, yes.
I would make a motion to pass, accept resolution 2022-101. And if there's a second, then I can explain myself.
I'll second.
Okay, so now we have a motion and a second, then an
Was that
explanation.
Debbie?
Yeah, that was Laura Lee.
Okay.
My understanding of the job of a board, one of our primary jobs is to hire a superintendent and to set board policy. My understanding is it is not incumbent or even reasonable of a board member to evaluate teachers. It's not my job. So if I'm presented with an opinion by my administration that is hired, that is recommended by the superintendent and passed down, and if it is consistent with board policy, I think as a board member, I'd actually be delinquent in my job as I understand it, to hire an administration and to support board policy. I also believe that this is time sensitive and that it's not necessarily final. But those would be the grounds that, it's been pointed out that we don't know some things, and I don't know some things, and I probably never will, because it's not my position to get between an administrator and a teacher. It's not my position to go into various classrooms and evaluate teachers. I'm not trained to do that. But hopefully, anyway, so that's my argument for why I would support this petition, this resolution.
Can I say something before you, because you'll call the vote in a moment, and I do appreciate the kind of 30,000-foot view of the procedures and the roles and who is responsible for what. In the non-procedures, in the very personal way, there is nothing about this that is easy. It's kind of like pain all around. And I have had a number of conversations with Karen. She's very intentional and deliberate, and this is not a lightly decided. I mean, there's a lot of contemplation about, and in response to some of the constraints that Rob was referencing. And I told her, I trust that you, I told her on the phone yesterday, even when, I trust you, because she is at her school site and she is also able to kind of take a step back and look at the big picture. And it's just simply not easy. But I do think that I am responsible for hiring our principals who have their job to do, and we work together. But there are boots on the ground on the school sites. And then I would say that transfers up, that the board hires me to, and in terms of the hiring, that hiring process. And so I just want to assure the board that in terms of the process, it has not been easy. And I think that moving forward is the appropriate thing to do, because this is the recommendation from the folks that you hired to do this job. So yeah, and yeah, there's nothing about a lot of things, decisions that we make that, they're tough decisions. So I think that procedurally, though, it's the right direction.
So, all in favor?
Sorry.
Nay. Okay, it's 5-1.
Is it too late to make a comment?
Won't affect the vote.
I know it won't affect the vote, but I just want to make a comment to him. I just want to say that, you know, within credential programs, I was in the same situation that you were, a new teacher. And your mentor, it's really important that you select a mentor that will assist you through your credential process. And sometimes programs aren't specifically geared for success for your possible creative way of teaching. And so I hope that you will find that program that will fit the need to foster your ability to teach and your love for helping your community and for being in the classroom. Fortunately, I had the best mentor that there is.
I was
You
a
know.
mentor teacher.
But I hope this doesn't stop you from your journey in teaching. And I wish you success. I hope to see you here again.
And then I want to comment, because if she did, then I want to say that my job, it is my job and responsibility as a community leader to do the very first thing that our responsibility is to the responsibility of our children, to see that they get the best education that we can possibly offer. And if it means working with somebody and doing something more than what we know about, because I don't know the whole story, but I do know the people. And I know their heart and they're good people. So no, I can't agree with this.
Okay, thank you. Item 9D, resolution 20-22. Missy.
But I'll introduce the topic first.
Yes, you will.
Okay, so this is a resolution for the elimination of positions in the classified service. I do want to just mention that previously, prior to this school year, members of the for layoff notices, classified members were given 60 days notice. So a lot of times jobs would end. We notify people in June that the position has been eliminated and they may be transferred, you know, that there may be a layoff at the end of the year. This year, the legislature passed a law which puts the classified elimination on the same cycle as the certificated, which is a March 15th notice. This resolution contains a number of positions, most of which do not have people in them. Do we have any of these with people in them? Yes, we have two. And the two that have people in them are grant funded positions, which are ending, so they're sunsetting. We've reached out to CSEA to say this is the direction that we would like to go. We will sit and we've talked about negotiating the effects of eliminating these positions. We intend to talk to them about restructuring some of the positions because they just haven't really worked in the past. So in terms of impact and the immediacy of this, this is moving positions, not really about people, with the exception of the two that are grant funded that will be going away anyway. Those we could do notice at the end of the year, but we decided it's, you know, to let people know now that we know that those grant positions will be gone, let them know that we're going to be looking at what positions they can work in next year. So does anyone have questions from me about this? Then it would be easy. Okay, public comment.
Missy Allen.
Hi, thank you for hearing me tonight. I understand what Ms. Jen is saying in regards to these being vacant positions, although there is 4 of my positions on there tonight. And 4 of them, I mean, I am never gonna stop trying to search for a bus driver. We are very short-handed. I don't come in here, I don't whine, I don't cry a lot and tell everybody but it's hard. We're having a hard time at the transportation department. Last week, I was not able to fill. Somebody called in sick, COVID stuff and all that, and I was not able to fill a run. That breaks my heart in our community that I cannot fill a run. And that these people are picking up. So I have 6 bus drivers. I need 10 to fill these. We're beating every day. We're running frantically trying to get our kids to school. And it is a hardship. I have 6 of them that are doing other people's jobs right now. So they are picking up those bus driver positions. We're making it work, but it's hard. It is very hard. And to see 4 positions gonna just get off of the, you know, it scares me. It scares me all the way around because I'm never gonna stop looking for a bus driver. I would love to fill that. And eliminating sounds so official. And I know it's been on the books for the last few years, but these come with dual positions. So I've subbed out the other portions of these positions. So to eliminate them, then how am I going to tell the person, you know, in a couple of weeks, hey, you can't sub no more because I don't have that portion anymore. And these bus drivers that are covering these dual runs and just like running back to back. So it's not that these jobs they should go away. There's people doing them. It's just our people that are doing double of these jobs. And that's my concern. And I know that they've been vacant, and I know that you guys have to make decisions, and I understand that, and I want to support that. I'm not here to make those kind of waves or anything, but I just want it to be knowing that it is a hard time at the transportation right now. And it breaks my heart when I can't fill something. I have people in vans running, trying to meet every one of our routes and runs. So it's not that some of these are not getting filled. Some of them are people in vans. So I just want to make for sure that the funding is going to be available for like people that are in overtime that are covering these. So far, I haven't had that problem, that it's been taken care of. So I don't fear that that is not going to happen. I also want to make for sure that if some of these are given up, did it have to be 4? Could it have been 2? And a couple of planning meetings on how maybe we can redo some of the transportation. I know I've shared that concern with the business office a couple of times. I would like to have a planning meeting to go over some of this before it's so official. It just, those words eliminate, it scares me. And that's my biggest concern. I will always be looking for a bus driver, and I want to see how many positions really are still on my books versus what I think I have on my books. I want to make for sure before this 4 positions are given up that's a lot to give up. So I would like to, before you guys make your final decision on elimination of these positions, that there's like another plan in place, and that I have that assurance that I'm just not eliminating something and gonna not with more buildings and stuff going on. These 2 of these positions are my main maintenance. One of them surprised me being the maintenance for the 12-month when I never even spoke of that. To give up more maintenance and stuff is like, we're putting in more buildings. So who's going to caretake them? I have more people. None of us are getting any younger in the transportation department either. And more are starting to go. I mean, I have a 7th bus driver, but it's only, you know, we're not getting any younger, and everybody's starting to want to retire everywhere. So I understand that part of it too. I won't, but the need for bus drivers is always going to be there as long as we provide transportation. And we all know transportation is big here in our community. We need it. It's not, you know, there's oftentimes that it feels like we don't need that. It's just, you know, we give that here. Well, we need that here. That's why we give it here. And we pick up the ACEs in activity, and we provide a lot in our transportation. And my drivers try really hard to make things work every day. There's not a day that goes by, and every day is a new day at the bus shop. And I just want to express that before there's 4. I mean, that's a big amount of positions to be eliminated tonight without a full-on plan of what is going to take place for this. And I would like to be part of that planning and know that there's a better plan in place before the full elimination, because it's hard to get this back. I'd hate to come back a couple months later and be saying, I got 5 more bus drivers. Can you please give me these jobs back? You know, so I just, that's where I'm at. It's hard times at the bus stop. It's a hard time there right now.
Would you like to speak?
I have a couple of things. So I wish I have a note in my office that I kind of feel like I need to reference, but the fact that, so thank you. And the fact that we have drivers that are working overtime, like this has zero impact on that. And so what I don't know is how many bus driver positions will still be on the books, because we looked at the worksheet that you sent over and kind of reconfiguring and morphing and being able to like just have a gardener so that we can hire somebody that isn't attached. And I understand that whole subbing. We have, all of our bus driver positions are combos because we have nobody driving for 8 straight hours. So they are wearing multiple hats. They're working overtime. Having additional positions without having the people is kind of, what we're trying to true up. I don't know, Missy or Carmi, if you remember, how many other bus driver attached positions would remain on the books with this. So I would love for you to come and say, I have 5 people that are interested, but we haven't had anyone, we still have 2 positions. So if we can recruit and fill those 2 positions, I think it would be very reasonable for us to consider. We are starting to, fill these positions, but these have been just kind of, they've been empty. So we want to still recruit those 2 bus drivers. And then if those are filled, that still will not bring you up to your 10. But I think that will help us kind of reorganize. We don't want to reorganize your department because you guys do a great job. But we want to be able to reorganize the positions that don't have people in them, because they're carrying this. I mean, for one perspective is it doesn't feel good to have all of these empty seats, because we're like, hey, come to work in our school district, but we have all these empty seats. That's more of a morale thing. And the other thing is just fiscally, it's so hard for us to predict where we're going to go when we have to budget for these positions that have been vacant. And this was based on, the worksheet that you sent over. We're going to work with CSEA. We told them like, we want to reconfigure some of these things, but I think
I have my worksheet right here, and I also asked for a meeting, and I never got my meeting before all these positions showed up on this piece of paper advertising the agenda. So that's where I'm asking if I could have a planning meeting ahead of time. That is part of the work, and that was just sent through an email. And I would really like, this is a big change for my department. And so these people are picking up these jobs already, and I want to make sure the funding is there for them that are still stuck doing overtime and additional hours for this. So that's some of the confirmation that I want to make for sure. And part of that planning thing that I gave was asking for a meeting with the business office before it came here. Yes. And so I just seen this when the board agenda was put on there and my 4 positions on there.
So can you, I'm not sure what you mean about like your folks that are already working and are working overtime.
I just want to make for sure the funding is still there, because where's it going to come from? I want to be assured that they're going to be taken care of with all of this additional. They're picking up these pieces to these jobs.
Right. I don't think that I wish I could say with certainty, but I don't think that their overtime is being part of these positions. Their overtime is in their position, in their own. It's like overtime in the position that they're in, not having anything to do with that. Is that an accurate statement? Does it sound like in terms of?
So based on what you had sent over and looking at the wants and the combinations of things, this is what rolled out of it. So looking at your current needs, gardener, a mechanic assistant, based on that sheet you provided, this is what came of it, based on how many vacant positions you have. And you were spot on the positions that you do have. I think once it was put in writing, it's very an eye opener. However, there are still 2 positions open that are half bus driver, half maintenance. You still have those positions. Now, as far as overtime for staff, you should never budget for overtime, because we really should look towards filling those vacancies. I mean, really put out an effort for bus driver training, really take a good look at where our bus drivers are on the salary schedule, things of that nature. If morale is lost because they're losing overtime, but they're exhausted, I don't know how to fix that fine line, because I understand that completely. They're not losing anything. We're trying to gain so that they can have a life. I mean, I know this because I know they work hard, every single one of them. And so looking at the department as a whole and looking at your plan, that's how many positions dropped out based on your current needs. That's how I read that document.
But there's 2 positions on here that weren't even on there. I have the document right here, and those positions weren't even on there. The maintenance that says for 12 months, 220 days, that one wasn't even vacant yet. So is that the Trinity Valley one that just became vacant? And that's what I'm saying. I would like to sit down.
You have 2 other positions that
Well,
are.
that's what I said. I need to see what you guys have. And I asked for a meeting so that we didn't have to do this here. I wanted a meeting, and I think that it would be great. I don't want to be here tonight with this. And if we could have solved, I feel like we could have solved that in a meeting, and I asked for that.
Can I ask you this time sensitive?
No, I mean, yes, in terms of us, you know,
What's that? Because of the 2 positions.
because we have 2 that are filled, but they're grant filled, so, I mean, for us, it's not legally time sensitive, but in practicality, we are really trying to be able to sit down with the classified service and say, this is what we know we are, you know, we have out that we have year after year budgeted for. So it's just kind of a operational need. And then there are the 2 filled positions that are grant funded, which is
I'm trying to stay within the timelines as well. So for when we go to put for budget adoption, so what I presented to you would be null and void. It would just all come back. So trying to have a.
But what was the reason, excuse me, that she didn't get a meeting? You guys didn't do a meeting before we came here tonight? Was there time thing or what was it?
time. It's, you know.
So I was under the impression that maintenance was aware of this and had been working on it. That's what I walked away from the discussion.
Yeah,
understanding.
We work from the plan that was presented to us in an email.
Well, again,
Yeah.
with the state requiring that classified positions also be the employees be notified by March 15th. This is the first year that has come into play. One of the thinking here from me is that we have to get these out of the payroll thing, because every year we go to negotiations and, oh, you can afford it, you can afford it, you guys hide money, you hide money in positions that are on the books that you don't fill. We get that every year. One of the things that I was thinking here is that when we do away with these particular positions, we can then come back with a full-time gardener, full-time maintenance. And still, bus drivers will always be needed, but as we can find them, we can fund them and fill them. So you may have, the meeting should have happened, but again, it's not in stone for everything. It's like what we did with the certificated. We have to pass a resolution by the 15th of March. Can go back to administration. You can still work out your issues of what your needs are. I have a feeling there are more positions in the payroll system than what you have on your books.
And that's just the big that's it. And I'm sorry that we had to come here tonight, but I mean, when I seen it on here as 4, I just wanted to make for sure that people are aware that transportation is very much needed.
No, we've been wanting bus drivers, but in the process of not getting them,
Yeah.
where maintenance and the grounds are also being shortchanged. And I know that they're very hard workers, they're working overtime, but what I'm seeing is everybody is being exhausted. Let's do something. So I think this is step one of, let's get our payroll positions organized, then go back and we can always add that.
And I support that, and I'm part of this team, and so that's what I'm saying. I don't mean to throw somebody under the bus or anything. I'm very workable manager, and I really just, wanted to have some clearance before having to come into a meeting tonight, and I think it could have been just a little differently, and that's all. I don't come here very often to say how big transportation is and how big the need is, and I just want that support that everybody knows that it's needed. There's oftentimes that it feels like, oh, well, they're just the bus drivers and.
No, we're fully aware of that. And you can't throw us under your bus because you're not driving.
I know.
I'm sorry.
No.
First, Missy, there is nobody, I never heard anybody utter they're just the bus drivers. I mean, I feel like they're revered here, and and so I feel like I am charging you with taking that message, and we've had a lot of conversations about the value of the folks that you work with. Second, the good news is that this doesn't impact anybody personally. Your people who are working overtime the good news is they will be working overtime, and the bad news is they'll be working overtime. I mean, there's the financial incentive, but it is exhausting. Third, I think that we have to be dynamic. So if all of a sudden we have ridership is up, we're going to have to be responsive and say, we need to put another bus driving position out, on the books. And so this is really our efforts to clean up something that, we've had a lot of turnover and turmoil, and just like sitting down and kind of drilling down on what we have and need, and whatever number I'm up to. Fifth, I think I want to take responsibility for not addressing this in a graceful way with you. And it's just kind of we're doing the marathon run and we're at a sprinter's pace and things fall off. And I want to apologize for that, that feeling of it not being a priority in terms of communicating with you. So I feel like I still stand behind this, but I do want to, take that accountability for the process being kind of clumsy. So, so thanks for acknowledging, like, you wanted this to be done somewhere else. So do we, and we're just kind of like, it's just the kind of that tireless and endless days. And I really do feel like at the end of this will do no harm to the department. I feel like it's going to enhance it, because it's going to be like, these are our people. So, but I am sorry that it kind of.
Well, I thank you for that. That sounds like that's going to be a better bridge for my people and my departments, and it feels like that will be honored, and that it sounds like there's better things coming with some of the plans that I have submitted to you guys. So I'm thankful that you did look at some of those things, and now I know that you did. So, and
and I'm sorry, it just wasn't
thank you,
fair.
and I'm
Yeah,
sorry that
it
it's
wasn't.
here.
My finesse is not real good with that, and I just, I feel like that what statement you said is we are part of the team. But I think that sometimes we go to bed and we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't do this, and so I just need to name that and say I think that now we'll have a little bit less to swim through, so we can be more precise. Okay. And that I hugely appreciate how much you work with your department, and celebrate them, and never ever walk out of any room thinking that anybody is thought of anything except for like they're heroic.
Thank you.
That's what we say behind their backs.
Thank you.
Comment. I hear there's talk of a full-time gardener.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
And I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-1. Okay, on to action item 9E, resolution 22-23, expand preschool, transitional kindergarten and/or kindergarten and authorizing projects. filing of applications for funding under the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten and Full Day Kindergarten Facilities Grant Program. Would like to speak to that.
I can introduce it. This is, but Jacqueline and Dana have been working on the Universal Transitional Kindergarten program, which involves a couple of different grants and plans from the state. We're moving towards providing TK for all 4-year-old students in the next few years. This specific grant is about the facilities, and Dana and Jacqueline and I have talked about, we're like, no, we are full with facilities. We're hoping that there will be some opportunities to do some outdoor learning classrooms and some things that we're not going to build a new building. That's not what this is about. We're still in with OPSC stuff. Yes.
Why not? Why couldn't we finish the wing at Trinity Valley?
I think we can finish and retrofit. Yeah.
Why not?
I think building a new one. So Jacqueline has more information about it. Yes.
I guess one of the biggest needs of all of the schools, and the thing that I clung to when I saw it in one of the plans that I read, was outdoor learning centers. I think all of our schools need some new outdoor everything. We need a lot of help in that area. So I initially thought, oh, perfect. It's a lot of money. Maybe we can do that. I met with Cindy Kopp from the county office. She said, actually, no, you can't. It's just for facilities, unless we use money to either like retrofit some classrooms, or like in my case, I have at least a classroom we could redo for sure. I have 5 on that wing. Then we could attach like outdoor learning play and things like that to that, and then use some of the money in that way. So we just kind of are getting this information right now, kind of going through it and trying to figure out creative ways to possibly use that money. We are getting, this is a little side note, we are getting $50,000 for the district for planning for this. And she did say, you could use it for that. And I said, yeah, well, that's not going to go very far across multiple schools for, outdoor structures and stuff. They're very expensive. So we need to figure this out, kind of figure this out and decide. There is going to be another funding round next year. So if we don't jump on this one, there is another one coming up as well. So
when I was reading this, I was envisioning, maybe, like throwing some of the money towards some of the empty classrooms on that wing, but what it described was the classrooms you need to do that with need to be close to the drop-off area, and so it would have to be the closer classrooms to that drop-off area. And so if we did that would have to be the case. And then I thought to myself, well, don't we have a preschool that's right there?
Yeah.
And couldn't that come under the school's wing?
Well, there's like 6 different grants right now, and one of them is actually,
and it's right close to a drop-off,
a state preschool grant. There's like so many different things, but I don't know about that. Will tell you this. I have a kindergarten roundup planned for my school, and the other schools are setting theirs up right now too. Kindergarten TK roundup. And this time I did something different this year. Mine's on March 22nd, but I partnered with Head Start behind us because it feels a little bit like, oh, now we're offering school to 4-year-olds. So then what for them, So the way that I'd like to present it to all of the communities is really, what is your need as a family? Maybe your need is for Head Start. We have really different programs. We're going to offer something different in the public schools, and so when I do our roundup, actually, she's doing a roundup with us at ours for my site, so that we can kind of offer the platter of options, So I don't know about them becoming like under us, but I know that we are trying to work together. And my hope is that we're going to be able to do that with all of our schools and all of our Head Starts or preschools or whatever programs we have in each community. It's really exciting though. There's a lot of I know, I think you guys are all aware that for TK, you have to have 24 additional units that the other teachers don't have to have. That's a lot of units. And I found out that there's funding for that. And so there's a lot of really exciting things I think that'll come with this.
It, you know, it's wonderful that there's funding for that, and then, you know, it's finding the people, the choice people who want to work with our young ones.
Yeah, that's true.
Do we own the property that the Head Start is on up there? We do.
Yeah.
Okay, because leased facilities are not allowed, and so I read that. But I was thinking that one wing for sure, somehow to get that one completed.
Yeah.
So as you might imagine, I'm, so Jacqueline and I are kind of, we're all working on this together. I am the naysayer, like, oh, we're still dealing with this Office of Public School Construction. So I would say that if we were to move forward, we will examine that it won't jeopardize any of our other unclosed projects. But so I feel like this would authorize us to really investigate it. I don't know what the deadline for the application is.
It is.
Is this April 1? Or is that the other plan?
I'm sorry.
Is this the meeting data that I set in on the other day?
So April 30th.
Thank you. April 30th. Yeah. Facilities grant is, yeah. There's another one that she was talking to us about for April 1st, but yeah, facilities grant April 30th.
I make a motion to approve this resolution 2223, expand preschool and regional kindergarten. I'll second. So,
I think Karen wanted to express something and I wanted to.
Oh, I just asked Jacqueline. Sidebar.
Sidebar. Oh, no, but I saw you.
Yeah.
I did want to just add, I don't know if this would be part of the motion or this is just, management. If we find out that this will complicate any of our current projects, then I'm gonna move forward. We can delay it for a year. I mean, we really need, I feel like I gotta be laser focused on the ITech building. So if this will at all detract, whether it's staff energy or the relationship with OPSC, because we're still working out some details with them, but I don't know if that needs to be part of the motion or if I can just kind of, this get.
Ask you, does that need to be part of?
I don't know if we can just, no, okay, you approve this and we might, yeah. We might.
But
Great.
because we're approving an application.
Yes.
And if the funding comes to us, then we will support you being in a position to give direction to the staff, or the staff could come back to us and say it doesn't fit.
Right, or if we don't apply because we find out before, like, oh, this is gonna cause problems in other. So, okay. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Was that everything? 6-0. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jacqueline. And I'm sorry, as a follow-up, I do want to say that Jacqueline and Dana have been hosting community meetings. They have another community meeting at Jack Norton scheduled for next week. I don't remember which day. It's in the paper and on the website.
Yeah, we're piggybacking on the LCAP meeting, so families aren't doing, separate meetings.
That's a
And
good idea.
Jacqueline will probably do some, and I'll probably do some of the.
And Tabuchi's on. Sorry, Tabuchi's doing kind of the LCAP thread and Dana is doing some TK information, and then there's one at which cut scheduled as well.
Yeah, and then we'll just keep going around the world.
Moving on to action item 9. Yeah. Approval of elementary vice principal job description.
So, Hoop Elementary is the only elementary school with an assistant or vice principal. We just decided it was a good opportunity to update the job description. We have lots of job descriptions that, we've been updating as needed and as we can have capacity for. I want to thank Scotty he gave, some additions. Scotty knows what Hoopa L needs because this is for his site. I also sent it off to our interim Indian Ed director because she's working in the district a lot. So we had a couple of eyes look at it, bringing things forward to some needs that have arisen since the original job description was approved in 2012. Lots of things were different than the plans. So that's my introduction. I don't know if Scotty wants to address anything about it.
I second that motion.
Come on, she's already making the motion.
So do you want to?
So Debbie made the motion to approve and you want to hear from Scotty.
Jen.
Yeah.
I will just say that when we were looking at the job description, and as Jen stated, there, we were looking back to 2012, so there has been a lot of changes, and even in my tenure here, there's been some changes in being able to look and identify what our needs were now that we have systems operating and the machine is moving. And so one of the big pieces for me personally, and one of our goals is to carry over the PBIS efforts and what we're doing with installing that, and then putting a back end to it. And what I'm noticing and seeing is the need for a development of a disciplinary matrix. And Jen and I have very briefly talked about what that looks like, and I've been looking at other models for basically a response when we're having to handle punitive things, and that's a vice principal part of the big part of the job. And what I've seen is some inconsistency, and I want to have some consistency in that and a roadmap while taking into account specific student needs, of course, but at least a matrix so we can look at a student who's constantly out of class or ditching. We have a way to a protocol to follow. So that was a big push for me. And I think it'll continue the efforts in developing those systems that tie to our PBIS efforts, which are moving slowly, but they're developing. And so that was a couple of things that I added, and we chopped down some things that just aren't relevant anymore. So that's all.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
appreciate the opportunity to do that, by the way.
I would love to work with the elementary, so it's a fluid, so it transitions all the way through from elementary to high school, and it's known and it's consistent for the kids. So
Yeah. I'm hoping that in doing that and developing those things with the new vice principal and the PBIS team, that we do have eventually a district-wide disciplinary matrix. So it's a pet project for me.
Okay, Debbie made the motion and Tom seconded. All in favor?
Is that 6-0? Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, item 9G.
This is also bringing the business and instructional calendar for 2022-2023 school year. Minimum requirements are 180 school days for students, 182 work days for teachers. There are some superfleet employees that work 195 days, but this is, it's broken into these funny months because these are attendance months. This is the attendance business calendar that we, roll things out of our office with. I am really happy to have worked with KTTA and CSEA and identifying some of the negotiable factors of the calendar. There's some things that are not negotiable: number of instructional minutes, number of school days, holidays. I'm happy that we got it to the board this early. Emily ran it by the county office. We'll send it back to the county just because they really support us and keeping eyes on things. We had a couple of math issues, and so yeah, it's nothing super exciting. But we did, we had to work with the start and end dates and some of the holidays. It's a tricky holiday year. So it was good to come to an agreement at this point. We didn't get everything we wanted. I mean, nobody, it's just the way the holidays fall. So this is kind of where we landed with that we liked.
I move we approve the calendar.
I second that.
All in favor? Okay, and we already took care of DF. So we're down to 10A. 10A, district boundaries trustee area boundaries and number of trustee areas. Would you like to address?
Yeah, I really feel like we need to have guidance from legal counsel on this. I've been trying to schedule a meeting with Aaron Stagg from School and College Legal Services. If the board is interested in passing a resolution to address any of these issues, I really feel like we need to wait to hear from her. She and I have been, our schedules just have not matched up. So I know at our last meeting, there was a feeling of let's deal with this immediately. I emailed her the very next, legal counsel the very next day. It's just, you know, we can't have it happen immediately. I think we'll be able to meet next week. I said, in addition to drafting a resolution for her to come up, give us a very concrete timeline and step-by-step procedure, so we don't end up in a position where we're having a discussion about something that, you know, the board maybe had not planned on talking about with relation to the trustee areas. We want to know what is going to be the, you know, all of the steps. So I don't know that I don't know if it's worth having a discussion without having any more information at this point, because it would all be speculation. But if you would like to, I have a blank paper. I have nothing to present to you right now.
I thought we were doing an ad hoc committee or something to discuss that. Or the whole board's gonna do it.
Well, I can't.
I don't know that.
Originally, it was an ad hoc and then the board agreed to meet, but I'm gonna work with trying to get some guidance from legal counsel, because they're, you know, School and College Legal is doing this with all of the districts they work with, and they're familiar with Humboldt County phenomena.
Yeah, it was my understanding too, that we would have a couple of board members on the ad hoc committee.
Did we already?
And it was kind of consensus, I think, what I was watching is that most everyone was wanting to go to the 5 trustee.
Tom, were you on?
If I remember correctly, changing trustee boundaries, but not changing the numbers did not require a public process specifically, but changing the number of trustees does require a specific public process. So that's why I don't think getting legal advice first would be opposed to or prevent us from doing an ad hoc committee, but it might give us some guidance about how to do that properly. Because it sounds to me like we would need to have at least 2. It would start with, my memory was a resolution that the board would make a resolution that says this is, we want to investigate this issue. And then we would have to have at least 2 public meetings that would have to be duly advertised ahead of time.
And then
But
all
we did
tribes
make a
have an
resolution.
input in that.
Yeah, so
We
we
did
want
make
to
a
set it up
resolution
right.
in our motion that we wanted to go in that direction, you know. So that's already been done, and my understanding is that you can go to legal counsel, you can also go to the county, and you can go to the state to get a waiver. So there's all kinds of directions to go in, and I don't know, I think there's
The waiver
certain
has to,
timeline that we have to get this done by.
the waiver has to come from the county, I believe, we go through the county.
So are you asking us if we want you to go to legal counsel to map this out for us? Is that what you're asking?
No. I feel like that's what we really should do, because they'll draft the actual resolution that is moving from, we just indicated that the board is interested. That's why I don't have, we didn't agendize a resolution because we didn't have it. We couldn't produce it instantly.
But you're doing that, right?
Yeah. And then, and I could schedule the meeting for the 2 or 3 trustees that are on ad hoc, or I can just bring that information back and send it off to everybody. What I really want to make sure is we have each step. I looked at it in Ed Code, it's as Tom described it. And Ed Code, you know, it's legal code. So I want to make sure that the attorney is saying, yep, this is each of the steps. I think it can happen pretty quickly because the board does have, you know, consensus and direction. So, I mean, as soon as I have something from her, I can let you all know, and then we can convene a small group. I don't remember who was on the ad hoc or if that actually was appointed.
Oh, yeah, just if you let everybody know.
Okay. I'll keep you informed.
Okay, item 10B, school safety plans, surveys, and COVID protocols.
I think I covered everything in the SIP report related to this. It just was an opportunity if the board wanted to discuss anything about the new state guidelines or have any questions, but we've been sending out a lot of information about the updated COVID protocols. I wanted this to be general safety, but that seems, it's always about COVID right now. Debbie?
So it seems like there's been some big changes made in that, because I had gotten a message from a lady the other day that was teacher's day at one of the schools and said that a child that came to school that day tested positive, but they sent him on to class and they said that something to do with, because he had been tested positive within the last 90 days, that he was going to be okay because he already had COVID in the last 90 days, so he could be in class. Is that, and I guess that's what it is, or that was my understanding. I don't know.
That would
Jason
be,
maybe knows.
yeah, and that's been the recommendation for folks that test positive. They're just like, don't test for, so do you know the specific?
Yeah, I know the situation, and I also consulted with Jason. So when a student is on, has tested positive, and that's day 0 up to day 10, people can test, and if they test negative, they can return early out of isolation. Now, if it's day 11 or any day after through day 90, they are exempt from retesting. So this particular individual has tested positive, but was past day 11, and therefore did not need to be retested because there were still antibodies present. So this student was approved to attend because of that factor. So I had talked to the parent, I talked to the administrator, and the student should have never been tested in that
So
group
he's
of
not
surveillance
contagious
testing.
anymore? If he's testing positive, they're not contagious at that point?
Any district employee who has tested positive within from day 11 to day 90 are exempt from retesting unless there's new symptoms that surface. And there were no new symptoms that had surfaced.
So I have one other really important point about the quarantine and the isolation protocols. Basically, Humboldt County Public Health, along with the California Department of Public Health, has basically removed all of the work that we have done. The only requirement is that we report positive cases and that non-vaccinated employees continue to test weekly. Everything else at this point, they're saying they are strongly recommending. So even the isolation is something that is a recommendation. Our team has said, we're going to continue with this because this has really been effective. I mean, we haven't 100% beat COVID, but we want more time before we roll that back. So I just want to assure the community, we are really sticking with the previous protocols, even though countywide, they're just recommendations at this point and not legal requirements. That was kind of a big shocker for us, but we want to proceed really cautiously. So we'll meet again on Wednesday and look at what where we're at with masks. And yes.
I just wanted to add, let the board know that in that particular case that Melissa was referring to, I just wanted to give some appreciation and some a sense of what's what I'm looking for. Reassurance in that when that situation arose, there was a lot of communication between Melissa, Dr. Kimball chimed in, and we did have a little bit of back and forth in trying to figure out what was done. But ultimately, we came to a conclusion very quickly as to what was supposed to be done, the protocol for that student. So it was a huge relief to have the support. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Right.
Because it is confusing. 11 days, 90 days, vaccinated, unmasked. I'm glad that the guidelines are becoming less to interpret.
Okay. Item 11A, Wellness Outreach Specialist Draft Job Description.
I It's just information for the board to read. I'll come back to. Yeah, something a little more precise about if you get to pasteurized twice.
Item 11B, Assistant School Safety Officer draft job description. If that's another information item.
Yes, it's just information, but the information behind that is that the safety team made a specific recommendation to increase the safety department, which is currently a department of one. So I wanted everybody to just look at some things that, some duties that the safety team is saying that we're finding that there was a need. So I'll come back with that recommendation, but I wanted to just have it go through first and then look at how will this fit into everything. So I wanted everyone to really take a look at those job descriptions, but that is a team recommendation.
Thank you. Item 11C, school site reports. Do any trustees have any comments?
I thought that trustee was a- for the.
I can't hear you.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out when you wanted me to talk about my trip to the conference. I think it looks like it's the last thing on the agenda to me, but trustee area reports.
So I have a comment.
Okay, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Cooper Elementary and Cooper High School for submitting their report. I'm always on them and growling about them not including that here, and so I appreciate that it's a nice report. It's very detailed. Thank you.
I too enjoy reading all the reports and see what's going on. One way of trying to keep up with the students, etc. I do have a question for Orleans. What is school qualifies to receive silver recognition as a PBIS? Tell me a little bit more about that.
So for the MTSS grant that we're working under, we've been focusing on PBIS. And it's like a big program, PBIS, and there's these different things that you can do to be recognized as a school that's implementing PBIS. So I've been working with our team and with Melanie Susavilla. And in our last TFI meeting, we found out that we actually have a lot of the pieces in place and we qualify for silver status. So I have to apply for that and working with her. She's going to come out on Monday and tour our school again. And yeah, and we've seen a really nice improvement in school climate at our school. Despite the little hiccup that you heard about here, and I feel like there was not correct information presented or it's a little bit misleading. But you know, we've had people at our school that know the school and they say, wow, things are different here and it feels really nice. And so
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
Great to hear.
So hopefully we'll.
And Laura, when I spoke with Melanie about her site visits, she immediately said, she's like, you walk into Orleans campus and you can feel this. It's visible, the positive behavioral supports in the system for students. So she's our local expert on this. So congratulations. That was really good to hear for,
Yeah. I like to hear good things.
Employee group reports?
Oh, there were no attachments.
Teachers Association?
No.
All right, so we're California School Employees Association. So trustee area reports.
So I'm just getting back from the trip to Sacramento where I went to a small schools. So you can hear me though, pretty good, right? Or at least Tom can.
Small School Districts Association in Sacramento. And I was a little overwhelmed really because mostly, I travel to a lot of conferences with my husband. He's been on the tribal council for 20 years. He's off now, but in all my traveling with him, I was always his support. Oh, here's your stuff. You got to be there, do this. This time he was my support. And I missed a couple of things. So I was like, help me like I help you. But anyway, it was pretty fun. when, there was a lot of serious things that went on. There were superintendents there, mostly more superintendents than school board members. But they did have a couple of really good school board member meetings to take in and just talking to us about our roles and responsibilities as school board members. And, there's a lot to that. And I brought some things home from there. I brought pens for everybody. And these are pens that this company, I'm not even sure how, Verigy, something to do with energy. Anyway, they sell solar energy, and they were talking about if you live in an area that you have, sun a lot of the, the time, that they would willing to come in and assess your district and then help you get, putting grants to federal government. They encouraged me to encourage this board to look into that and send for them. I have numbers and things to get in touch with these people. It sounded really good to me because I think solar is a really good alternative energy, for the summer times. And yeah, so it was really good. And I want to thank the board for sending me there and things that I've learned. And hopefully it's going to help me do better in the next 6 months. Thank you. Well, I think maybe things are going to change and I might not be here next year. So I'm just saying for the next 6 months. Thank you.
I just wanted to report that I went, as a school board member, I went to the PTO meeting for Trinity Valley School, and the PTO has a lot of good things going. I mean, I was like, wow, so
Really exciting.
it's, yes, I'm really impressed with the group that's going. And it looks like Tom's daughter's been getting involved. So, yeah. Good. Okay.
I move to adjourn.
I second that. Bye.